for discussion. Item 4 is for discussion and possible action, consideration to enter into cost reimbursement agreement with BLM for the review and process of district proposal right-of-way and Nickel Creek water. Aaron?
Yeah, I can take the lead on this. This is a response back from BLM from our application that we sent in for the right-of-way in the Nickel Creek area. They've returned a proposal back for, let me get the proper name, the cost reimbursement, what do they call it? Yeah, the cost reimbursement agreement. And BLM has categories that they decide how extensive it's going to require them to look into and to process. And they've put us at a category 6, was the highest level. And their estimation is going to be, it'll cost about them $20,000 to process this. And if it's less than that, they will reimburse the district that amount. That's less. On the flip side, if it's more, then they'll request additional funds from us. Before I go any further, is there any questions on that item?
Does we need to tell these people what this is about? This is something we probably won't even use for 25 years. We've got some water rights available to us. They're up here behind this highest tower. You know where that's at.
We have currently the water district has a perpetual right-of-way that goes up from our well 29 site. It goes due south. And from that, it comes very near the Nickel Creek wash area. And we have a water right that is in the mouth of that canyon. And it's for 2,100 acre-feet of water. And at this point, we don't have a right-of-way to that water right. It's a surface water or a spring water right. And this particular application is to connect our current right-of-way that exists over to that water right. And that allows us to access that in the future if demand requires it, and we can provide water from that area.
This is their response to our application.
It is their response to our application, so it's part of the review process, and for them to continue on with the review process, they require us to cost reimbursement for their time and processing.
Ms. Ellis-Stan, do you have a comment to make there?
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
How close is the Nickel Creek water source to the proposed line of the wilderness area?
So I'd have to go find that out, but it's not.
Nancy may know. Does Nancy know?
Nancy knows. It's a few miles. And if
From
you
it?
read the legislation, you will see that anything that when they designate the wilderness in the legislation, that gives it has specific language on what the land outside of the wilderness, how it would be affected. So basically, you can do anything outside the wilderness and the wilderness doesn't have any effect on what's happening outside the wilderness. It has the same thing with access along the roads, and it has certain amounts of feet that goes along each road that's outside the boundaries.
So
Only one piece of proposed legislation says anything about water. Senator Reed's bill does not mention a single thing about the water.
But if you read how the legislation is designating the wilderness, you will read that the wilderness does not affect anything outside of the wilderness.
I understand that. That's why I'm asking the question, how close is that wilderness boundary to the water source?
I think what really matters is the fact that the water source is not within the water. The water source is not within the wilderness boundary, and that makes any other points pointless.
Not necessarily.
But, I mean, the answer to the question is 2 miles, correct? Is that what you're saying?
It's
2 miles?
a couple miles, but it's well outside of the boundary. What I'm saying is, if you read how the legislation designates wilderness, you will find that it does not affect outside the boundary of the wilderness how that is managed.
Mr. Hafen, have you got a comment?
Just remember that's proposed, so a lot of proposals change and maps change and ideas change, and so who knows what's going to end up happening. I think we need to keep that in perspective as well.
Also in the legislation, it says current facilities. It doesn't say anything to undeveloped rights in Horsford's bill also.
That's true.
That's one of the glaring differences there. So, and it's, Mr. Hafen said it's proposed boundaries, so they aren't defined yet. So that's one of the pop-up. Question going back to this right-of-way, was the answer from the VLM, is that a typical answer or was that a surprise answer? In the way of the category and or the right-of-way process, was there a surprise within that answer?
Not necessarily. That's something looked at and tried to compare to others and see if that was, again, justified or within reason. And it's hard to compare with anything else.
Well, I mean, you've done right-of-ways in the past, so I didn't know if it was a surprise that they gave it a Category 6 or it had typically been a Category 3, and
right.
the level of cost to do, in essence, an extension of a right-of-way, perpetual right-of-way. I mean, not to have you give a raw characterization, but was it a surprise to the district when you received the response?
You know, the first item when I saw the cost, it was a little bit of a surprise, but in some of our past experience, like at our the treatment site 31 for that right away, to amend that, I think we had to pay about $31,000 for. So it's within reason.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying, I didn't know if it was a total surprise or just a little bit more than expected. That was.
With our general manager, have you run into this in the past, or have you got some experience?
Yeah, and looking at their categories of review, the Category 6, what throws it into the Category 6 is their estimated federal work hours are over 50, and when you start looking at some of the issues that they're going to be looking at, they'll definitely be over 50 hours, and looking at their breakout of costs, those, based on archaeological and botanical and other reviews that they're going to be doing on that area, their costs seem to be within reason.
Would you recommend that we go ahead and do this?
I recommend you approve this.
Well, if I remember right, it's been almost 2 years ago, this was one of the main things that we put on the issue, on our list of things that we wanted to accomplish, that we thought was of high importance, was to get this right away. So it would seem that it would be very important to go ahead and get this done when we can.
Any other comments, Mr. Ray?
Well, I think that the Category 6, I think if I remember the numbers that they said with the off-road weekend, with the Eureka and that, I think that the number that they were talking was the same dollar amount to get that and even to go forward. So I think they just, if it's going to be over the 50 hours, that's where it goes. And I mean, they hold the key to the lock, so I don't know if we have any choice if we're going to try to get the easement. So we just need to hope that the proposed legislation doesn't draw closer to the proposed water source, which we'll wait and see what happens.
Mr. Buller?
I think we're ready for most of that.